Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be setting up my journal for the month of August, and as always I'm going to do a little flip through of my last setup first. And I was super happy with the colors and doodles for this one, but they were a little bit more work, so this time I wanted to choose a super simple theme again. And so I went for tulips for August. I originally wanted to do a lavender theme, but I just couldn't really figure out something I liked, so instead I went for tulips, and I think it ended up looking a little bit more like a spring theme, but I still think it turned out really cute. And so for the colors I chose a light pink, an orange and a yellow shade, and then also a darker green for the stems and leaves. And as always, all of the products are going to be listed in the description. For the first page, I'm starting off with a little calendar as always, so I first wrote the weekdays on the top with the pink marker, and as for the sizing, the days are 2 spaces wide, and then I wrote the dates with black into one row, and I left another one empty in between each one. Here I'm just crossing out the days from July and September with the yellow shade, and then I also added some lines with the green shade in between each week. For the cover page, I wanted to go for a really simple design, so I just made 3 tulips on the top, and I just started by drawing the green stems and then also adding some simple leaves on the sides. Then I'm using the light pink, the orange and the yellow for the petals, and I made them in kind of a teardrop shape with 2 small tips on the top to kind of just indicate the petals. I didn't add any outlines because I wanted to keep it super simple this time, but you could obviously do that if you wanted to. Underneath I wrote August with the pink marker in a really cute and rounded font, and I also spaced out the letters quite a bit. Lastly, I'm also adding some stars and sparkles with the pink, and I'm still not quite sure if I would have preferred a different color, but I think it ended up turning out really cute. And that is my first 2 pages all done, so let's move on to my habit trackers. For the title, I first wrote daily with the pink marker and then habits underneath with the fine liner tip of the yellow marker. I also added some lines with the dark green on the sides to fill out the space a bit more. For the habit trackers, I first made the borders with the pink, but I had to go over them later with the other side of the marker because it ended up being a bit lighter for some reason. As for the sizing, the sections are 7 spaces wide and 6 spaces tall, and I also added another line underneath the first row for the weekdays. Then I'm writing the weekdays with the dark green, and I'm also writing the titles on top with the same marker, and I left 1 space empty underneath the titles for a bit more white space, and also 1 space in between each habit vertically. This month I'm tracking not using any social media in the morning, doing some sort of movement, whether that be just a little bit of stretching or going for a walk, doing a little bit of art practice, and not using my phone before I go to bed. Then I just crossed out the days with the orange marker to incorporate all of the colors. To decorate the sides, I added some smaller tulips, and I wish I had made them just a little bit smaller, but they still ended up looking really cute. So I first made the stems and the leaves, and then I alternated between the colors for the petals, and I'm also adding the little stars and sparkles in between, and I just tried spacing everything out pretty evenly. I also made sure to leave a bit of space on the sides so that it kind of aligns with the title, which just makes it look a bit more clean. Then I did the same thing for the other side, and I tried not to use the same order of the colors to add a little bit more variation. I also ended up correcting the middle tulip on the left side with the white acrylograph because it was just a little bit too close to the habits and it made it look a little bit too crowded. Underneath I also added some weekly habits, so I first made the same title and I wrote weekly with the pink and then habits again with the yellow underneath, and then I'm also adding the green lines on the sides, and I also decided to add little stars next to the habits part because it looked a little bit uneven. I made 4 weekly habits as always, and I'm first writing the titles with the green marker, and this month I'm tracking making my weekly spreads, having a little self-care day, doing my weekly reset, and working out 1 to 2 times per week. On the right side to track them, I added some circles with the pink marker, and then I can color them in if I complete a habit or cross it out if I don't. And then here I'm just going over the borders for the habit trackers again to make the color a bit more even. For the next page, I like dedicating this one to just some general planning sections for August. So I made 4 sections for planning out each week, and then 1 for the events in August and 1 for September. I first made the same style of title again to keep everything consistent, and then I started making the sections with the pink again. All of the sections are 10 spaces wide with 2 spaces empty in between them horizontally, and then the weekly sections are 9 spaces tall, and I left 1 space empty in between them vertically, but also 2 spaces on the top for the titles. So they're 11 spaces tall in total, but it also depends on the amount of dot grid spaces you have in your journal. So for reference, mine has 38 spaces vertically and 26 horizontally. Then I'm writing the titles on the top with the dark green into the middle of the sections, and I put week 4 and 5 into one section together because there's just half of the week left at the end of the month. For the other 2 sections, I wrote August and September, but of course you can include any sort of sections you want. I left out a little bit of space in the corners for the weekly sections to add some small tulip doodles, and I only used the yellow and orange since there's already a lot of pink, and I also didn't add them for the bottom sections because they're already very small. And that is it for these 2 pages, so let's move on to my first weekly spread of August. For this spread, I wanted to go for a layout with 8 equal sections and a little bit of space in the middle horizontally for some doodles. And I'm starting off with a mini calendar on the top left. So I first wrote August on top with the pink as a small title, and then I'm writing the weekdays with the green and adding the dates underneath in black. Then I crossed out the empty days with the orange, and then I wrote week 1 underneath it with the yellow shade. And I also added a line underneath the title because it just looked a little bit empty. Then I'm using the green to make a border all around to kind of visually separate it from the other sections. For my daily sections, I started off with writing the titles, so I first wrote the weekdays and the dates in green on the top. Then I'm adding some lines in between them with both the yellow and the orange, and I alternated between them for a small pop of color. Next, I made all of the borders with the pink marker, and I left 1 space empty in between the titles and the sections. As for the sizing, each section is 11 spaces wide and 13 spaces tall, but with the titles they're 15 spaces tall. And then I left 2 spaces empty in between them horizontally, and then for that middle section I left 5 spaces empty, but you could always do more or less depending on your preference. Then I'm filling the middle section with some smaller tulips, and again I'm first adding the stems and the leaves to kind of just figure out the spacing, and then I'm adding the petals, and I switch between the 3 colors again to make it look nice and varied. I tried to space out the tulips pretty evenly, so I sketched them out first with pencil, and I also left some space on the top and bottom so it's not too crowded. I really enjoyed these doodles because they're not only super quick but also really cute, and I think they ended up looking like a little tulip field, and I just thought that was really pretty. Next, I'm also adding some smaller stars with the pink in between to fill out the empty spaces, and then I just repeated the same steps for the other side. In case you're ever looking for some inspiration for your weekly spreads, I always post my other ones from the weeks I don't include in my videos in the community tab of my channel, although I will be on vacation in the middle of August, so I probably won't be making a spread for that week, but there are already tons of others, and I pretty much always use the same sort of layouts, just with different doodles and sometimes a slightly different arrangement. But overall they're pretty similar, so again, if you're looking for inspiration, make sure to check out my community tab. But anyway, that is it for this setup, so let's do a little flip through. I wasn't too sure about this setup in the beginning, but I ended up really liking it. It might not be the most fitting theme for August, but I'm trying not to be too strict with the seasons, because at the end of the day it doesn't really matter, and I just want to do what I enjoy and not try to force a certain theme. I really love the color palette. I think it's really bright and cheerful, so I hope you like it too, and of course if you have any questions or suggestions, make sure to leave me a comment, and also make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and you would like to see more of my content. Anyway, thank you so much for watching as always, and I hope I'll see you again next time. Bye!